administrative things, on your CAP report, you should see CSCI 4941. If you don't see that, or it just says not apply to your degree, don't worry, we're going to fix that. You'll fix that. It'll get fixed as soon as you get a letter grade. The other thing is if you're doing RCOS for pay, you'll get paid this Friday, I guess March 6th, so next Friday. And if you haven't filled out an I-9, like you can't claim the work you're doing on your RCOS project for RCOS. Like don't work until you get the I-9 in and get the I-9 in as soon as possible. Yeah. You have to do that if you're doing RCOS for pay.
That's like federal law.
Yeah.
So get those parts filled in. Cameron should have yelled at you if you haven't done it yet.
The platform per semester thing?
6 months when you start working for a guy.
Right. Cool. Okay, so first we're going to have Josh Goldberg talk about ASP.NET.
So this talk is on ASP.NET, but really it's about MVC. So this is really targeted at people who don't know what the heck MVC is. So if you're already a Django programmer, just take out your laptop like you're actually going to be bored. If you've never done this before, this is your portal to the world of great web architecture. So I'm going to go over what MVC is, Model View Controller, what ASP.NET is, just an example of MVC framework on ASP.NET, and then some code sample from high school. So MVC stands for Model View Controller, which I'll go into more later. And it's not like a specific thing, it's just a recommendation. So it started off in the 70s as people had these movies where you had the user, you had the data, and you had the thing on the screen, and they needed a way to separate them out so that complicated logic didn't just blow up the program. So they came up with this general kind of recommendation called MVC. And a lot of the more standard software libraries will have specific frameworks implemented for MVC. A lot of people have conflicting views on how it works. Because it's such a broad area, I'm just going to focus on the web stuff because a lot of projects here are ASP.NET MVC or Django or other MVCs. So just quick show of hands, who's working on a web project or a project that has web in it or that uses the internet? That's multiple. Okay. So the most important part of your project is a lot of the time it's going to be the model, the data. If you have anything with a database or things that are stored. Who here has a project that stores data in any format or uses the internet? Okay. So in MVC we call that the model. The model is just a way of saying this is how the data looks. It's like a class, and actually in ASP.NET models are just specifically delineating classes. So you could say that you're using a string as the model. So the data comes as a string, or as a custom struct or class, whatever you want. You can actually go wild. So the view is how you look at the model. This tends to vary, but for ASP.NET, it's generally you have some page somewhere, and you pass in a model, and it magically displays in a nice way, which is really convenient. The point is you have the model, which stores all your data, then you have the view, which is how to display the data. The two don't know anything about each other, except that the view knows how to display the model's data. The model doesn't give a crap what the view looks like. A model could be used by 50 different views, it doesn't care. And then to link the two together, we have the controller. The controller takes in the user input, finds the model, finds the view, matches them together, gives it to the user. Basically it. All your super complicated coding logic, that goes kind of generally in the controller. Again, just one more time, this is a general recommendation. I'm going on ASP.NET if you know an MVC framework that does definitive stuff. So, in short, the user goes to the controller, says, I want this, the controller finds the model, finds it to a view, returns it. So just real quickly, this is like the simplest MVC I could think of. This is C#, which we all know is the best language. You have your controller up there. Do I get like a pen or anything with this?
You can draw
On this thing?
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Yo, when did we get this? Wait, how do you want to do this? Savvy, help me, please. Oh my god, this is, guys, you can't see what we're seeing, but it's amazing. All right. Thank you very much. So, the user goes in, they give a request. That's just asking for the home page thing. That's why we call it home controller. And this here, if you look at that, delineates that we're taking the index view, which is this guy here, and foo. Now, the foo is the model, and we know that foo is the model because it says foo there, and the model is a string. So index.cshtml is always going to be taken as string. What's up?
What is CSHTML?
I'll get into that later, but CSHTML is something along the lines of C#HTML. You don't, just in learning about MVCs, you don't care, but for ASP.NET, that's the name of the really nice array of syntax pages. It's like actually really cool. In later examples, I'll show it like running C#, almost as if it's PHP, but a much better language. So then we get this guy here, which is just saying you have a P, you have all these little tags, and really it's just inserting the model whenever you see the that sign. That's just inserting code there. So the model becomes foo. The page just has you gave foo. Does this like make sense? Oh boy.
So is there potential for XSS vulnerabilities if the string contains HTML tags, or does ASP.NET do the relevant escaping?
Maybe. So, keep in mind, that is a good question, but it's also mostly irrelevant to like everything I've said. So please, if you have questions, make sure they're relevant and would benefit the entire class. So, oh no, this didn't. Give me a second here. So, ASP.NET is an open source web framework developed by Microsoft. Now, most of you already hate Microsoft. We won't go into that, but ASP.NET is like real good. It's not just MVC. ASP.NET is like their general web framework. It lets you run like any CLR code, which for most of you is C#. They also have a cool F# thing, which is like super weird. VB.NET, any other CLR language. It lets you run it inside pages, which means you get the versatility of the web with the actual usefulness of server-side languages. No more like Node.js required. So you get all this great functionality. They have like this whole framework behind it with like actions and pages and routing and all this great stuff that lets you build web apps. And then you can just script in some stuff because it turns any language in CLR to scripting language. So built on top of that, they also give open source ASP.NET MVC, which is the name of their MVC framework. It's built on ASP.NET, and it uses Razor as HTML pages. There you go. And on top of ASP.NET, gives you all this great functionality with controllers and views, and they're like these modules that come with Visual Studio that will like build your database for you. So you just say that you want a model with like whatever field is screen, and it'll like build a whole relational whole database. It's like actually ridiculous, and I have no idea how most of it works. And most of you won't use that if you use ASP.NET, but this stuff makes it real easy to make a new website, which is awesome. So I'm going to give a code example. Is anyone not ready for code examples? Like, do you want me to slow down?
More code.
Yo, let's do this. So this is like a super oversimplification, but let's look at the model. So the actual model we use has like, I don't know, a dozen different things, but we're just going to store the string color, string title, and string paragraphs. If you've never used C# before, the get set things is why, one of the reasons why the language is clearly the superior language. It just automates all this cool stuff. I won't get into that. String paragraphs are just an array. It's really the vector of C++. Clear this automatically. So this is utility view. So views can show other views. So this one is just displaying a section. If you ever go to the high school happening site, it's like vertically oriented, so there's a section, a section, a section, a section. This is one of those. So also, if you don't know HTML, doesn't matter. Concept will just say this is the color. So model.color just returns model.color. Model.title returns. Yeah. So model.paragraph returns. Yo, come on. Screw you guys. So anyway, this code right here, that just says we're embedding C# into there, or CLR, technically C# because CSH. So this little for each thing, that's just native C#. And if you ever get into like compiler design, the fact that they have a compiler that lets you do this is ridiculous. Look up Roslyn if you get time. It's the craziest stuff. Like this compiler is like the most flexible, ridiculous. So for each string, paragraph, and model that paragraph, we can all guess what that does. For every string, for every paragraph they have, we print it out. And yeah, excess plus vulnerabilities, HTML.R. We just print it as raw HTML. So that's what this utility view does. Good? Doesn't play? So the primary view is just what I'm going to say we see when we ask the site. It just gives you the header of the H1 highschoolhacking.club, renders the view section.cshtml, that's what we saw, and then gives you a footer. I don't care too much about this one. So what the controller is doing right here is the first thing the user wants. It takes in the URL index, which is home, which is default. It says that we're returning a view. The view is index.cshtml, what we just saw. And this is the model we're giving to it. Super duper awesome. So the color is steel because we're hardcore. The title is who we are, and we give a couple paragraphs. So for the HTML junkies here, yep, raw HTML right there. And I still can't believe that. It's like, okay, didn't work. So this is the result. Who we are is model.title. I'm going to go back to that actually. Color is steel. And I bolded the ones so they're a little more emphasized, and then the two paragraphs in there. So to most of you, this is like done. Like we have this section which specifically said what the fields are, and then we get the result. Whoop, wrong one. Then we get the result. There we go. But what's really nice about this is you can add all sorts of crazy complicated shenanigans here. What you don't see in this is that there are two views in this, because there's the primary view, which was the index, and then there was the utility view, which is the section. So all that crazy crap you have to go through in Django to get templating, this just does natively, which is freaking awesome. And you can render views as strings and manipulate those strings. It's such a powerful engine that like you can't even go into it without sounding like some sort of like philosophical SDS professor, because like there's just so much crap you can do with it. That's, I mean, yeah, so one more thing, I don't have too much to talk about here because there are a lot of presentations, but you can also get different paths. So this is how you use string arguments in ASP.NET. You just say that you can add in title and then an optional color. So the URL up here is /home. Title is mandatory, color is not. So color defaults to blue. Then we can see that blue was the color and these are the passwords. Does anyone have any questions? Relevant or otherwise? You.
So is this framework available like just on Windows, like ASP.NET, like, or?
So up till like right about this year, I would have said sorry, yeah, just Windows. But I'm not too up to date with it. They're making like all this stuff. It's already open source, and they're making versions for Linux. So in like a year or two, you'll just be able to run this on Linux, which is coming from Microsoft, really weird, kind of a good sign. Disclaimer. So right now we could probably hack it together. I'm pretty sure they have like the DLLs available for Linux, like Mono or something.
Yeah, this version of Mono has an MVC4 built in.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know more than me, so.
Yeah, it works.
Okay.
Sweet.
Yeah. So basically you can just do whatever you want. You.
This works with any CLR language?
Yeah. So if you're one of those weird F# programmers, hey, I want to talk to you about I don't know if that's there. You have to look that up. CLI. Anyone else? Swag. Thank you. Also, there we go.